Hey, what's up, fam? This is a test of sample accurate triggering with gun samples. So let me just walk you through real quick what's going on here. On play, I start a trigger repeat. So this is our fire rate control, right? So what happens is I intake a float value, which is the fire frequency, right? So it's hertz, so I have to invert hertz in order to create time, right? Because it's a per second, so that's 1 over s, right? Our units. And then when we want s, we just invert it, right? So 1 divided by, and I have a clamp. So if the value input drops below 1, then I'll just get 1 per second, and that's it. And then on play, we start the trigger repeat, and then we have a special input trigger, which is end fire. And then the trigger repeat goes to this little mechanism, which is it's basically just a flip-flopper. Okay? And we can see what happens if we add a print log. We can, boop, if we hit play, and we go to our log, we can see it's just counting from 0 to 1. Okay. And so when it's 1, it picks this branch, and when it's 0, it picks this branch. So it's a little flip-flopper. And then this just lets us do a little round robining. Round robin wave players, right? And why do we do this? Well, it allows one of the shots to ring out through the other shot. So the shots end up cutting themselves off. And then we have a little mixer. And then at the very end, so let's do this. Little mixer. And then this is just an enveloper, which does a couple of cool things. What it does is basically on play, it kicks up an envelope with a 0 attack. I use the audio envelope because I want this to be super precise. So the 0 attack is like immediate. So I get that first initial transient. Sounds great. And then I have set. This is a little trick. You didn't even notice it was happening. But when I start firing this sort of it's like an assault gun or something like that, right? When I start firing, the sound is repetitive. I mean, I'm just using one sample here. Obviously, if you've got multiple samples, you get a little more variation, which is good. You can see that I'm doing some random pitching, but very slight. And that just affects the phase, which is good to just create some sense of variation. We could add noise to the signal very subtly. That would help add variation. So there's lots of different ways to add variation when I've only got one sample to work with. But this is helpful, and this is a sort of a psychoacoustic effect. So we'll call it basically what happens is when I start firing, I give the decay time of the first shot, essentially, as the decay time to drop the volume of the overall gunfire about 3 dB. So, what's cool about this, you start firing, and that initial shot is actually sort of the loudest shot of the burst. And then it slowly drops in volume, but it does it in such a subtle way that you don't quite notice it. And you can, obviously this is tunable. And when we hit end fire, we just use that duration as our release time. And when the envelope is done, it kicks off and on finished, actually ends the sound for the audio engine. So there you go. And now you noticed when I got to like really high, let me drop the sound real quick here. We'll play it in the background. And you noticed these triggers. These triggers are sample accurate. All right. When I raise this value, this is audio rate now. Now what happens is when I go really high, see here, it sounds like it's flickering. That has to do with my sample. So there's a couple of things that you'll have to think about, right? Because what's happening is it shoots one and then it shoots the other and then it uses the original wave player over again. But if I want my shots to ring out longer over more fires, over more shots, then I'll have to, increase the number of wave players. We might come up with we might think about some sort of wave player, like multi-voice wave player or something like that. But like if I cut my sample to be even tighter, if the transient's closer to the beginning and less attack, then it'll be more audible. I'll be able to go up to really high frequencies. So that's when you hear the breakdown, it's not the timing that's breaking down, it's the sample actually being able to play across the time. Remember, we're not pitching the sample. The fire frequency is going up, and I'm not changing the pitch of the sample. This is important to understand. So I'm not playing the sample faster. I'm randomly pitching the sample. And that's why you hear flickering. That's why it's not consistent. And so, yeah, sample accurate triggering, strongly timed, custom inputs to support ending fire. Like, this is like, and then you can sort of go nuts, obviously. This is like a very simple example, but obviously you want other layers to your gun sounds. Mechanical layer, you can add a synth subtone. You could add a wave shaper to like give it extra distortion or hard clip it. All sorts of stuff to make the gun sound cool. But yeah, sample accurate. There you go. MetaSounds.